everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of When I Grow Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure to welcome my guest today, Pastor James Park. Hey, Pastor James, how are you?
Good. How are you, Blair? Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you too. I'm doing well. So just a short introduction, a personal story for me. Pastor James and I, we go back you mentioned, I guess, 13, 14 years now, which is crazy. I feel like it's been much shorter than that. But during my time at UC Irvine, if you're a new listener, I went to college in California before I moved back to Atlanta. And I was involved in campus ministry. However, I was looking for a church to serve at. And long story short, I found Irvine Onuri, where Pastor James was serving as, at the time, a junior high pastor, right? A middle school pastor. And it was through him and his wife where, I feel like I deepened my knowledge of what it means to not only follow Jesus, but obey his commands in discipleship, right? And they gave me the privilege of doing small groups with middle school age girls. And I just learned so much during that time. So Pastor James, if I've never said thank you, let me just say it to the world now or whoever's listening. Thank you so much.
I think anyone would agree that I should be the one thanking you, Blair.
No.
You called it privilege, but not many people would say privilege thanking the middle school students. You are an amazing leader and teacher for them. So. Many of them are still walking with Christ now. So.
Yes, obviously that's nothing you or I ever did, I'm sure. More you probably, because you carried them through all their years of middle school and high school. But what a amazing sight to see. Just through social media and stuff. I've been keeping up with some of them and those students and. But anyways, all that to say, thanks again for being here, Pastor James. And he is here to tell me what his journey has been and how he became a pastor, and just to give us a little bit of insight on, pastoral life. So, Pastor James, could you give us a little bit of intro on what it is that you do and what your day is like?
Yeah, so I'm one of the associate pastors at McLean Bible Church, Tysons, in Virginia. So my official title is West Region Pastor. And when we say West Region, we're divided up into North, South, East, West. So West is kind of a combination of 20 different zip codes that surpasses all that area. And there I help oversee groups and shepherd congregants through equipping, training, and counseling mostly. And so my day, you want me to talk about my day, Blair?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say every day looks a little different. So typical week looks like Sundays, we meet together and gather together for worship service. And I help people just kind of check in, and I do a prayer team. So if anyone would like prayer, we step aside and pray with them and counsel them. We help lead the newcomers class virtually, giving an orientation of our church. During the weekdays, mostly my days are spent just meeting with other staffs and lay leaders, and then helping the newcomers getting connected to one of our groups. And then I do visit some of our groups during the week to make sure they're doing well, and then checking in with our leaders by phone or Zoom, and then just praying with them. Then we also do biblical counseling throughout the week, where people call in with just different issues, and we just try to walk with them especially now, so many difficult issues during this season. So we try to walk with them in the Word. And then in the evenings, we teach occasionally classes, Bible study classes. And then we have weddings and funerals throughout the year. And we try to walk with our congregants and help them do weddings and funerals. And then Saturdays, this is kind of my exciting day of the week. We go out into the community and do food distribution. And so we're actually one of the largest distribution network in the county. So we distributed over 10 million pounds of food since pandemic started. And
oh my goodness,
there's so many underserved communities, especially during the pandemic. So we hand out box with gospel tract in it. We share the gospel in Spanish, English. And so many people have come to Christ. Just 2 weeks ago, we saw an Afghan immigrant lady that have trusted in the Lord Jesus for the first time. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's very exciting what the Lord is doing in that community.
That's amazing. So is McLean Bible Church, is that a fairly large church with different campuses, or
Mhm.
is
Yeah,
that
we're a multi-site church, and we have 5 locations in each county, and we're about, I wouldn't say I wouldn't have the right, probably correct number, but somewhere around thousands, 8,000 to 15,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So it is a fairly large mega church then.
Hmm.
Okay. So um just on a I have a kind of a personal question. How was your transition from moving from California to Virginia
Hmm.
for you
Yeah.
and your family?
Yeah. So definitely not easy. We um, made the move initially, just trusting that, like, so all my life I've been with Korean Americans and in a Korean bubble in Southern California, and I love that. I was very comfortable, and I love my previous church, Onuri Church. Served there for 11 years, but there was a stirring in our heart for just a connection to get involved with the multi-ethnic community,
Mm,
and just yeah, the McLean Bible Church. There's an opportunity to be one of their associate pastors, so I applied, and then moved to Virginia. It turned out that our new McLean Bible Church has over 100 different nationalities represented. So it's like almost like, United Nations. Like, there's so much diversity, and even in our neighborhood as well. I live in Centerville, Virginia. It's just very diverse. So definitely got to stretch our family in so much like racial and ethnic competency, and
mm,
just really taking me out of my comfort zone, but also really growing me in these areas. So I when we moved here 3 years ago, like, probably I was struggling the most, but now, like, yeah, we see our family really flourishing and really loving it here. So we're
mm.
really thankful to be here, Blair.
Yeah, that's praise God for that. I mean, Pastor James, if you don't mind, it's kind of a uh maybe a vulnerable topic. However, I'm curious, like you mentioned that you were facing some challenges when you first arrived in Virginia, maybe just in your ministry. What could you expand a little bit on maybe what some of those challenges personally were for you?
Yeah, I mean, for personally, for me, I think I love serving in the Korean immigrant church
Mm,
because there's so much commonality, and like, there's this intimate camaraderie. So even now, I have a picture of my former coworkers from Onuri. We were so close. We're like family. Just a lot of intimacy and community there. And so coming to a new church, new environment, I think my challenge was yeah, a little bit more individualistic.
mm,
Not, I mean, we're intimate, we're very close, but not as, like, we're not as collectivistic. Like, we're not community oriented. So kind of, I love that part as well, because we're given a lot of personal free time as well.
right,
Uh,
right.
but I miss, like, doing lunch together, doing everything together, and so for me, I think personally, just not having, like, working hard to develop new friendships and
Mm,
relationships,
yes.
and just really missing my family and friends back home.
Yeah, definitely. Man, I mean, I would, cause I the little time I spent in Irvine and and then moving back here, for me, honestly, it was a culture shock, right? Just
Mm.
even from Georgia to the West Coast. And so I can't imagine, because I know that you grew up in California, Southern California, and then just moving and then transplanting in Virginia, where I'm sure it's so different, is why I asked the question. Because even though I moved and I was Korean American, I moved to a place where there's a lot of Koreans. Like, literally, culturally, it was so different
Mm.
for me. So, um, anyways, so I was just curious,
No, I
how
mean,
you
yeah, it's
felt.
the first time in my life, or I mean, I lived in Turkey for a year, but yeah, other than Turkey, first time in my life being a complete minority.
Right, right, right. It's
But
so
even,
different.
yeah, even in Northern Virginia, there's a lot of Asian
Yeah.
Americans.
Uh huh. Um. Well, okay. So I kind of want to know like from the beginning, like when did you decide you wanted to be a pastor, Pastor James?
Yeah. So I didn't grow up in a Christian family. So I actually came to receive Christ as my Lord. My dad passed away suddenly in high school. Our family started attending church for the first time then. And all throughout college, I just really wanted to grow, understanding God's love and tell other people about God's love in Jesus. So right after college, I just told you I went to live in a country in Central Asia, Turkey, for about a year to share the good news of God's love with the students there, college students there. And that was a very difficult year and humbling year for the most part. Like I was for 3 months, I was living with 100 different Muslim men students, and instead of me telling them about God's love, like they were trying to proselytize me to become a Muslim,
Right.
and yeah, just a lot of challenges, and I wasn't able to see anyone become a follower of Jesus there. Very humbling season, but God was also working in that challenging season to humble me to a point where I can say, like, God, like I will do whatever and wherever you're calling me to do. So I don't know if it's vocational ministry yet, but I just kind of put my card on the table and I yielded. I said yes to whatever he would call me to.
Mm.
And then coming back to the United States, and I started working in an IT firm. So I studied computer science in undergrad. So I worked in a firm a little bit, just like almost a year, and I still wasn't sure. I have so many questions. If thinking about vocational ministry, like would I be able to make enough money?
Mm.
Um, and then like will my girlfriend break up with me, which is who's my wife now? Is my mom gonna be ashamed of me? Like there's just so many questions, and I was still scared, like what my mom would say or what other people would say, or my girlfriend would break up or reject me. But around that time, I think around that year, the local church community just kind of came around, and they were a big affirmation, just encouraging me. I think you should really consider full time vocational ministry. I think you're gifted or you're wired for it. So
Mm.
yeah, I think the first step that I took was I resigned from that firm company and then enrolled in a local seminary, and yeah, that was the first step.
Wow. Okay. So, a couple of questions as you were kind of sharing. You said that you were nervous about, what your mom would say. And I think, even somebody listening now that may be considering going into seminary, that's a valid worry, I think, in the Asian American
Mhm.
kind of scope, right, of
Mhm.
things.
Oh
And,
yeah,
um, so how did your mom, uh,
yeah. She
take
was
it?
definitely not enthusiastic about it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean, even many decisions that I made later, like even deciding to go to Turkey for a year, or I got married pretty young, 25, or going to
You've got
seminary.
married at 25? I did not know that. Okay.
Right. All those decisions, my mom was not a huge fan or a
Mm.
favor of. Uh, but yeah, I think she gave me in the end freedom to make my own decisions, and yeah, now she would say, yeah, some of the decisions that I made that she disagreed. Those were some of the best decisions that
Yeah.
I made
So
by God's
like,
grace.
I mean, I'm sure at the time maybe there was some friction or
Oh yeah.
whatever, but you know, for whatever reason you decided you just made your choices, right? And I know that it's different with every parent, but do you have any like advice maybe for somebody that is going through that kind of conflict, whether it's seminary or something else? Like as far as
Yeah.
I know it's been a while since you've like had to, ask your mom for permission for something,
Right.
but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely you want to honor your parents as the Bible says, but at the same time, I I think the Bible's very clear about who comes first when it comes to honoring. So yeah, we honor our parents, our father and mother in the Lord, but our ultimate allegiance is to the Lord. And if
Mm.
He's calling you to a season or direction that stands in contrast with your parents' will, then I think yeah, as hard as difficult as it is, like in the most honoring and this respectful way, like you want to pursue a direction that the Lord has laid on your heart or is calling you towards. So
Yes. And
not an easy thing at all. Yeah.
it's not, especially like when, yeah, you just want to please your parents,
Mhm.
and it's just so hard. But thank you for that advice. So you started seminary. Yeah, so what is seminary like? Do you need to, so you went to undergrad. Do you need to take any like prerequisites to go to seminary or GRE or something?
No, I didn't have to take SAT, GRE.
Okay.
It's like applying to any other school through application. Although I think you do have to detail how you came to know the Lord and how you are pursuing seminary studies or going into ministry. And then you do need the church affirmation that that church community is wrapping around you to support your studies. But apart from that, it's like entering into any other school. Seminary is very difficult. Like the studies are very rigorous. I took classes on theology, how to exegete the Bible. So exegete is like arriving at the intended meaning of the author,
Mm.
and church history class or preaching class, a lot of Greek and Hebrew class, and yeah, they require hours and hours of reading and writing. Um, yeah, but that was seminary a long time ago though.
Yeah. Can I ask you, so there have been people in the past that have said to me like, "Oh, like sometimes seminary can really like shake a person's faith." Like why do they say that? Do you know?
I actually I don't know if I've ever heard that, but yeah, I've seen people walk away from seminary a lot, and for me personally, Blair, looking back, like I think my understanding of the Bible and theology, just generally, was so too shallow,
Mm.
entering into seminary. So I felt almost like a child playing in a kiddie pool, like a shallow pool, and then like having to enter into an ocean of knowledge
Wow.
and theology.
Mm.
So if I had to do it all over again, yeah, I think I can definitely take it a little slower. And then if I spend just more time preparing and setting a good foundation, so just learning the Bible more, or reading up on theology, or just being able to process a little better, like not trying to go and just finish the school. I think it would have helped me to draw a lot more from the seminary training.
I see. Um, so after you graduate seminary, are you like automatically a pastor or how does that work?
So yeah, I was serving as a pastor already. So the opportunity opened up at Onuri, where I was serving already before seminary.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so you were there with me, Blair, when I started working with the middle schoolers. And when I finished seminary, I don't know if anything really changed, other than that I had a Master of Divinity, a
Right.
little piece of paper. But yeah, still serving hard in pastoral ministry.
So like when someone gets like ordained, what does that mean?
Yeah, if when someone gets ordained, I mean, I believe it's, I mean, biblically speaking, it's just a public recognition or
Okay.
appointment or commissioning of someone, that individual, to a particular ministry in the church. We see that in the Bible it was done through laying on the hands, or sometimes with prayer and fasting.
Mm,
But it's not like a graduation ceremony or another license that you get. It's just a public recognition of, like, yeah, God has called you. We see that God has called you, and you are gifted in this way, and so we're publicly commissioning you to be a pastor.
I see. Okay. I just was always curious, like, so I think just growing up in the Korean immigrant church, right? Like, 전도사님,
Mhm.
목사님, like just different titles. So I
Right.
never really knew if there was like a real reason other than the title itself.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't see an example of you know you being ordained and you having a different title.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So yeah, you can be ordained into the office of an elder, but that's just a public recognition from the church saying, yeah, you're gonna be one of our leaders.
Okay.
So when I got ordained, Blair, like, yeah, the next day I didn't feel any different. I didn't feel like
Okay.
no more sprinkles of spirituality in the air.
Right, right.
This is really more the public recognition part. Like I've been
Okay.
already serving in this ministry for a while, and then the church coming around and saying like, we recognize God's hand on you for your
I
ministry.
see. Okay. So you were going into the fact that seminary just really deepened your knowledge and your um even probably I would imagine your relationship with God. You know, I have met pastors, and actually me myself, I serve as a children's pastor at my church, my local church here in Atlanta. Um and uh I do have the desire to go to seminary one day. However, yeah, in full disclosure, Pastor James, like, do you feel that pastors or people serving in the church in the capacity of having a title or on staff, that seminary is necessary, or do you just highly recommend it? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah. So so when you said seminary deepen my faith or walk with the Lord,
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if honestly I can confidently say seminary deepen my walk with the Lord.
Right, right.
I really think it's really the local church that God has designed
Mm,
to train up the pastors and the leaders, yeah, and lay leaders as well. Yeah, seminary can be one good way for pastors to be equipped. They give you a lot of tools for ministry. It's a good place to learn exegesis, a good place to learn theology. But at the same time, I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's an absolute requirement for all pastors
mm,
to go through seminary because, yeah, there's a saying like churches make pastors, not seminaries.
mm,
So church community is where my character or our character is really formed. And when you think about 1 Timothy 3, Titus 1, all these requirements or character requirements of pastors, they're not formed in seminary. They're formed in church community and church
mm.
family. This is where he learns to teach the Bible or be in ministry, disciple others, and counsel others in the Word. So church is where the pastors learn how to be a pastor.
Wow, I've never heard it articulated the way that you have. So, thank you for that. I'm actually kind of encouraged. Just only because like school in itself, like just the education part is like so always so daunting for me. I just never really thrived at school, but
Oh, I'm surprised to hear that, Blair.
oh yeah.
So I'll say this because I encounter pastors or coworkers in my current setting where they they take seminary, but like one class at a time at a very slow pace, and
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
they've been in pastoral ministry for decades. And
Yes.
so these classes really do act as a supplementary like training where they are equipped with practical tools that they can kind of put into practice right away. Whereas I just drank from a fire hydrant.
Right.
By the way, like by the time I finished 4.5 years, like I don't know if I was able to retain as much.
I see. Well, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because my husband and I just had a conversation about it because I'm always like, oh gosh, like, I don't think I can go back to school again. Like, it's just a lot for me. And then he's like, are you in a hurry? Like, just take one or two classes at a
Mhm.
time. I'm like, can I do that? And he's like, yeah, like,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so you saying that too, I'm like, okay, maybe my husband's not wrong.
Yeah. So Blair, there are incredibly gifted minds out there who can do this in like 3 years.
Yeah.
And retain all of it. And I'm just not one of those people.
No, but I'm sure that's not true. But Pastor James, so can you kind of share with me your experience? I know that you're not in the Korean Immigrant Church right now, but I know a chunk of your ministry before you came to McLean was in Korean Immigrant Ministry. And so I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit what that was like for you, as far as just yeah, like your day to day. Because like really, I think a lot of people wonder like, oh, what do pastors do when they're not preaching on Sundays?
Right. They're just playing
Yeah.
playing the whole week. Yeah. And they just work one day a week, right?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you share a little bit on that?
So I mean, just my experience in my in the Korean church has been yes, everything that I'm doing now. Plus, I was preaching regularly, like multiple times a week. A lot of dawn prayer meetings at 5:30 a.m. Uh, yeah, Bible studies, and then Sunday every week as well. So
Mm.
a lot more just a preparation time for just teaching. But I think there's a culture in Korean church that I experienced, which could be good, which is the camaraderie, the collectivistic. Like, we do everything together. So when the Korean speaking side is doing something, yeah, let's all do it together because we're family, we're community. So we're kind of expected to sacrifice our individual rights or individual time for group goals to kind of achieve the group goals together. So I think the strength was that there's such a close bond in the team, and then but I just didn't have enough time, like personal time, for
Mm.
myself or even for my family.
Right.
So and then the pace of it was I don't think it was too sustainable to I guess uh, to match like the schedule that I had and the responsibilities that I had.
So a personal question that I have, I just just like relating your life to my life a little bit right now, but
Mhm.
like, you mentioned that, because of the camaraderie and like just having to do everything together,
Mhm.
there's strain on your personal life, including your families. And as for me, that's always been a drawback as well, if I'm being
Mhm.
completely honest. It's like having to be at church Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then, we're doing events or like
Mhm.
retreats or whatever, and
Mhm.
just always go, go, go. So
Mhm.
is that different in that you're seeing at an American church per se?
Yeah, I mean, I only experienced one American
Right,
church, but
right.
from my experience, there's so a little bit more individualistic, so a little bit more freedom in terms of time to, yeah, really just work on your personal walk with the Lord, personal spiritual walk with the Lord. I think I'm really grateful that they really emphasize that and prioritize that. Like
Mm,
they give you hours during the month and say just spend time with the Lord during this time.
mm,
Um, and and just the prioritizing of the family time as well. So really, we want the leaders and the pastors to lead from overflow of our personal walk with the Lord, and even being able to model what kind of husband that we should be, the Bible calls us to be, and what kind of father that we're called to be from the Word.
mhm, mhm.
So yeah, a lot of emphasis on that. So there's not too much demand on like you need to be at every event or like we need to do everything together.
Mm.
So part of me kind of misses that, like that closeness and intimacy. And then I would just honestly say my family doesn't miss that at all because they get I get to be home a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay. That's so interesting. So so is it just cultural, you think?
Uh yeah, I mean culture could be one, yeah, definitely component of that. Um I don't know.
Cuz
Uh
like, I just feel like, the Korean culture is just kind of like, just hurry, hurry, like, and just like we got to get things done kind of
mm-hmm,
thing.
mm-hmm,
And I don't know, it's just my own critique, right, of of
right.
the Korean immigrant church. And I can only speak to that cuz right now that's where I'm at, and it have been for a long time now, but
Mhm.
um yeah, but it was just interesting to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, another Korean American pastor told me, I think a few years back, like James, like at the end of the day, like at the end of my life, if I can just be a good father and a good husband, like I just will be really content with that.
Mm,
And that really struck me because like part of me is like I want to be a good pastor as well. Like I want to, really part of me really wants that success in ministry or success in career, whatever you call it. And yeah, just that emphasis, like if we're not walking intimately with the Lord on a day by day, moment by moment basis, and if you're not like shepherding your family,
Mm.
like really, to the Lord and spending enough quality time with them, they're just really like we don't have any authority to tell our congregants or lead our congregants in a way like this is a father with like I'm modeling what a father should be, or we're modeling what a husband should be.
Mm.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
really appreciate that priority and emphasis that yeah, that's emphasized by the leadership here.
Wow. That's like a big deal. Like, just because no one says that often, I feel like.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I can't really speak to everybody, I guess, but um I can see why it struck a chord with you too.
Mm-hmm.
But so what do you feel like is the hardest part of your job?
Mm. Yeah, the hardest part of my job. Good question. So yeah, just because how I'm wired naturally, and I'm just not a natural leader. I don't blossom with charisma, or I don't attract the crowd. Just ready to follow my leadership and my command. So I just that's an aspect of ministry that I had to really grow in to be comfortable with just standing in the front and just being proactive and leading people. Uh, but another thing that I would have to say is yeah, I mean, I like words of affirmation, and at the same time, I have a real hard time with criticisms. And
Mm,
yeah, I think being in an American church, I think people are a little bit more vocal on the criticism part as well. They're more affirming as well. But just having to respond kindly with patience and gentleness to just various types of criticism is, yeah, that's probably not my favorite part of the job.
mm, interesting. So like criticism about your leadership or like about like the way you go about doing things? I'm so curious. Sorry.
Yeah, everything. How I look. Not
Everything.
kidding.
Everything. No, I can't even imagine that. But man, yeah, I mean that would be hard for anybody, I feel like. But okay, criticism.
Yeah, yeah. I
Do you
mean,
feel like it was less when you were at Irvine Onuri?
uh, no. I think I don't know. I don't know. I've been messing up all all my life players. I deserve a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of that, and I learn from them as
Yes.
well.
So how do
Um,
you handle that, like yourself, even though it's challenging? Like, do you just keep
just
pressing forward? How do you do that?
I think God's been gracious to
Mm,
grow my level of empathy to see where people are coming from.
empathy,
So
yes.
like for example, when I was working with students, now I have a better understanding of where parents are coming from when they see their children struggling. And yeah, just yeah, that empathy has really helped me to understand at least their point of view. And if there's a grain of truth to it, then I can really receive that well and try to grow in
Mm,
it. But yeah, in the end, like I just want to shepherd them. Like I'm
yeah,
not trying to prove myself right and prove them wrong. I'm here to shepherd them, pray for
mm,
them, bless them in any way.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't want to be the hindrance to their walk with the Lord in any
right.
way. Yeah. So.
Yes. Oh, that brings to mind, so like when you were in California doing ministry, a lot of your ministry was with younger people. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So has that changed at all for you coming to Virginia? Like, are you working with adults? I mean, like grown adults,
Yeah,
not
big grown,
young
yeah,
adults.
right. So I actually did work with married couples a lot in California before
Oh,
I came
okay.
there. So I worked 4 years with the English ministry there. So there's a lot of married couples. A lot of them were older, grown adults
Okay,
as
okay.
well, fully
Not
right. But yeah, coming to this new church, yeah, there's a lot more. But the thing is, Blair, like Esther, my wife and Esther and I, we've just been thankful for meeting so many mature, godly
Mm,
brothers and sisters in the faith. So it's not like, wow, they're older, so it's like more difficult or difficult to handle in any sense. Like we learned so much from them, and yeah. So I guess that's one part that American church is missing is they don't have a natural deference to the elderlies, or
right,
right, they don't
right.
have like, oh, since you're older we respect you and want to listen to you. That really comes from our Asian American culture probably. And so um yeah, it's been a joy to walk with them and learn from them, and yeah, just showing deference and honoring our
Yeah,
seniors and elderlies.
that's amazing. I mean, do you find ever like I guess I'm just really curious because I haven't met a lot of Korean American pastors that have gone from the Korean immigrant church to the American church, and especially a church of your size as well. So like I'm curious, were there any like do you ever face like challenges in your ministry, whether it's like leading small groups or whatever it might look like for you on a daily basis that um like you didn't really know I don't know how to phrase this. You didn't really know was a issue,
Mm-hmm.
or even just like something to you personally that there's a conflict because of like, yeah, cultural things, like just that. I guess is there cultural difference in the way that you're doing ministry now and you didn't understand before, or now it's or is everything the same?
Yeah, no, I'm still learning on this part, Blair. I still am very ingrained in my Korean American culture, and yeah, just a couple examples. When people are sharing, some people tend to talk a little longer than others, and I realized that in the new new church, there's a little more tolerance towards people who are tending to talk longer, and there's, you know, there's a better listening, I guess, patience,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, or tolerance towards people who are apt to talk a little longer than others. Let's see what other cultural, yeah, and but I'm finding that there's more similarity. So the things that I thought were different are, I'm finding that they're not as different as I thought. So people still love it when we pay a visit and come into their home and spend time with
Mm,
them,
interesting.
eat with them, and you know, just, you know, people long for that fellowship and, you know, connection as well, especially during this season. um I've I found it interesting that yeah, like when we have people over, just asking people to take off shoes, that was kind of a little bit yeah, initially difficult on our
Right,
part.
right. That would be so weird, I feel
Yeah,
like.
but since our church family is so diverse, I think we're kind of used to, or yeah, we're used to crossing cultures along
Mm,
the everyday matter. Like, you know, when we go to this person's house, it'll be this person's culture. So, I mean, so many different ethnicities and nations represented. So, I guess I'm still learning. And you know, African Americans have their own different culture as well, and things that they celebrate. So, trying to think of more example, but there's a lot of examples where I probably messed up. I hope I didn't offend anyone,
I'm
but
sure it was fine. I just, yeah, I mean, I was just really curious because I just know that, um, I'm sure there would be, like, I feel like, because, you know, growing up in the Korean immigrant church myself, you know, the problems that I feel like are unique to our culture. I
Mhm,
don't know if it would be the same or translate to, um, yeah, Americans that were
mhm.
born and raised here and aren't from immigrant families. And so I guess that's why I really wanted to know and ask you. And,
Yeah,
um, you know, the types of wounds that we carry are different than those of other cultures as well. So
yeah.
I was wondering how, if that was like, if that was a shift for you to see the different types of
Oh yeah.
for lack of better term, I guess, baggage that people carry
Oh
and
yeah.
having to
Yeah.
bring that to the Lord instead of the Korean immigrant ones that we have, a second generation Koreans and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, definitely a new level of sufferings and issues that I hadn't, encounter. I mean, just in our counseling sessions, I would hear about these stories that, yeah, that I could possibly never hear in
Right.
a Korean American church setting. So,
Mm,
yeah, definitely stretching me.
mm,
Yeah, but I mean, thank God that you know, grass withers, but God's word remains forever, and His
yes,
word applies everywhere, every situation of life. Trains us, corrects us, equips us, and makes us competent to be men of God, men and women
that's
of God.
true.
So
That's yes. So good, so good. Okay, so I asked you what the most challenging part for you was, but
mhm.
what about what's the best part for you? Other than the obvious, I feel like,
Yeah, so I don't know if it's obvious or not, but whenever I'm able to open the Bible and show what God has done and said, and whether that's in private setting and whether through a Zoom call or even a public setting like preaching, and seeing people respond to what
Mhm.
God has said, and yeah, that just I would say that probably gives me the greatest joy, seeing people being transformed by the word.
Yeah,
So I don't preach at all like during this season in my life, but yeah, part of me really misses that a lot, being able to open the word and just be able to preach. But I really do love like personal ministry of the word as well, like
mm,
through counseling, exhorting, encouraging people in the word, and yeah, trying to just pray the word, pray through the word with people. So that gives me so much joy.
yeah, amazing. I thank you so much for sharing so much of your journey with us, Pastor James. Before we close our time together, I always ask people, do you have any advice for anybody that is maybe thinking about being a pastor or going into ministry or even like being a missionary? Because I know that you spent a year in Turkey as well. Any advice or anything at all? Anything you want to share that I didn't ask you about?
Yeah, I mean, probably the advice that I could give to my past, aspiring pastor. So if you're there listening, I would encourage you to just meditate or even try to memorize First Timothy 3, Titus 1. Just thinking about the qualification and focus on the character.
Mm,
We are so enamored with giftings and abilities, and rather than what people have to say about like, yeah, this is what a pastor should be, yeah, let's just listen to what the Bible has to say, like what qualifies a pastor and all these qualities that the Bible mentions,
mm,
and honestly look at yourself. What are some areas that I need to grow in? Like what are some areas that I really need others to really keep me accountable, and serve the church family wherever you are. Serve the church family really hard, faithfully, humbly. And if you are called to be in a vocational ministry or pastor, many times God will do that through the loving counsel and affirmation of the community around you.
mm,
So it's not going to be, might be a lightning or a dream that you have by yourself, but many times, yeah, God will show you through the affirmation of the people around you. So yeah, focus on the character, and just love the church.
thank you so much. That's really sound advice. And sorry, I do have actually one more question.
Okay.
Um, sorry, Pastor
No
James.
problem. No.
Um, so okay, I'm just gonna say it, and you don't have to answer this, but it's like kind of a silly question. Like me myself, something needs to change the book, like
Oh
really
yeah.
change my life, right? So like,
Mhm.
for those of you that don't know, McLean Bible Church is, correct me if I'm wrong, is David Platt's church,
Yeah,
right?
he's our lead pastor.
So
Yeah.
like, what is that like? Like, I mean, I don't know how to say it other than I'm a little bit fangirling, I guess, Pastor James, if I'm honest. Like,
Yeah.
because I mean, yeah, I mean, he's written some books that have really changed a lot of people's lives,
Mhm.
aside from the word of God itself, radical and all these things, and which I'm sure you knew going in.
Mhm.
Is his leadership like, does he talk the talk and walk the walk? I'm sure he
Yeah.
does.
Well, yeah. So yeah, I probably like I will be at the honest, like I just probably got over my fanboy stage as well, Blair. But yeah, I'm really thankful for David's leadership and faithful shepherding. I mean, as far as the few times that we got to interact together, like, yeah, I can attest that it's a brother who deeply loves the Lord and just remains humble and yeah, tries to like walk in integrity. And it's really sad hearing about so many stories of leaders falling these days. And I have to tell one story. We went on a trip together, and like I found that I had my own hotel room to stay, and actually David, I found out that he always brings a best friend, male best friend, to all of his trips, so that he's never alone throughout the 24 hours of his trip. And so he would kind of like stay uncomfortable in that way, so that so that he can walk in integrity. So I really
Wow.
appreciate I really appreciate his godliness and his humility.
Wow. That's very humbling, and also just being able to hear a story like that and know that, yeah, he means what he says and writes, and he truly like does fear the Lord is so awesome to
Yeah.
hear. Thank you for sharing that part too. Sorry, I know it's like kind of like maybe
No.
inappropriate to ask, but I guess like I was just like, man, that is so cool that you work with David Platt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, thank you again, Pastor James, for your time today. I really appreciate it. I was wondering if somebody maybe listens to this and has some questions about this episode, would you be open to chatting with them?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I can give you my. Should I give you my email or
Yeah. I can
contact?
give
Yeah.
and I can connect you guys too.
Okay.
Thank you again for that. So yeah, you guys heard it. If you guys want to talk to a pastor that's been through it and has lived it and is living it now with his family, which for me in itself is advice I would want, as somebody that is in ministry myself, like with family and ministry, like how do you grow your family? And we might have to talk later with your wife, but but anyways, if you want some advice, please feel free to reach out or DM me through social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. All right, guys, thank you so much. Thanks again, Pastor James.
Thank you, Blair.
Until next time, bye.
Bye.